Dogs whining. That's cool. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to NBA Stories. I'm your host, once again, Nick Nasby, joined by the man himself, Mark DeQuilla. Welcome back, brother. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm so happy to be in front of the mic again. I mean, like you said as a joke, you texted me and said, get that dust off your microphone. And I'm not even kidding when I pulled it out today. Like, I actually was a little bit dusty.
I
I had
had
to,
dust on mine, too. It was kind of embarrassing.
I had to do a little bit of cleaning. But,
I
I mean,
couldn't
we're
believe
back
it.
now. We got all the Twitter account passwords figured out. So we're going to be a little bit more active on there this NBA season, which I'm looking forward to, too, because I think we can get some great content going on there a little bit more. I mean, you guys get to see our faces this time. I think that's going to be important. Like, show our face a little bit more, get some more clips out there for you guys to check out. Since we know everyone out there is a little bit lazy and needs to see us in a highlight first and then come check out the actual podcast.
The visual stuff's always been like the big thing, right? I mean, like I don't that I get it. You know, I've always been like all about just hearing it. You know, I'll like put a podcast on the background just because I'm bored. You know, is my sound coming across okay? Is it coming from this? Do you think?
Yeah, what about me? That's a good point.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
Mine's coming out of the mic.
I just want to make sure because it just looks like my tracks going like light. Do I sound like soft?
No, you sound good.
No, it's all good. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So we're back. It's funny because like I can't. I realize now, and that's like a big thing about the video thing is like I can't edit that stuff, right? Like I like cutting and like moving stuff around where we just like stop in the middle of it and try to make it perfect. I can't like cut that stuff when it's video. I mean, I could try, I could like iMovie it, but it makes it tough. And so for myself, like being the perfectionist I am, that's always why I didn't want to do video stuff because I wanted to make sure that it sounded perfect. I wanted the best product out there. But like I realized at the end of the day, it just comes down to content, right? Getting content that people want to hear, saying the things that people want to hear, talking about the stuff and the important issues that people want to hear. Watching a dog with the zoomies. He's going crazy. Anyway, but the first thing that we wanted to bring back after we went on a little bit of a hiatus, I think the both of us had a lot of life changes going on. I know I did. And so we were both going through, you know, different things, positive stuff, of course. But realistically, it was just really tough to get behind the mic and start to record consistently. And we figured we might as well take a little bit of a hiatus, given the fact that the season was over. In that window, I happened to have a very good conversation with one Rashad Phillips, one of our favorite analysts and one of the most, I would say, influential, or will be one of the most influential pundits when it comes to the NBA of tomorrow, on the forefront of a lot of these things that are now coming across the table as reality for people in the mainstays like ESPN and Fox and stuff. I had a conversation with him on the phone, and I told him, you know, I think it would make sense for us to be a part of this network here. You know, so this season we're going to start up with the 23-19, try to get content out, you know, try to make sure that we're getting Rashad's name out there as much as we can. Obviously the platform's not massive, but for everybody who is listening, I think that it's something that people will want to hear. So that being said, Shad's got a new book coming out. It's coming
Yes,
out
sir.
in 4 weeks.
We
And
can't
we're really
wait.
excited about it because it talks about his basketball position metrics. And I did want to say to everybody, and not leave this till the end, that I purchased 4 right now, and they're going through Rashad first, and he's going to be signing a couple of them, and we're going to be giving them away. And as we get closer to the season, when we get closer into the season, and we can see kind of what we want to be the giveaway, what we want it to be, we're going to announce that. So if you guys want a book, you know, make sure that you're tuning in, make sure that you're joining and entering the sweepstakes, and we got 2 of them for you. So it's going to be a great book. He's going to be talking about the position metrics that he talks about. We'll put his Twitter handle in the feed here for everybody to go there and see what we're talking about. You can also go to 2319.com and 2319sports.com rather, and see, you know, for firsthand what we're talking about when we're talking about these basketball position metrics. So that being said, keep tuning in. We're gonna have some sweepstakes, some fun stuff coming up. The housekeeping shit out of the way. I want to talk about the NBA. It's coming up. We got stuff coming up, Mark. What do you think? I mean, going into this, we were trying to come up with a name, but everybody who listens to this pod really is into the NBA. So I thought, what's a better name for a recap than the "If You Lived Under a Rock" recap for the offseason? What do you think the biggest story, or where do you feel like you want to start the conversation? Do you want to go chronologically? Because I feel like it's better suited if we just go by like the biggest stories and then just keep going from there.
I'd agree with that. And I think I'll kick off with really what felt like was holding up the NBA offseason for a long while there, when there were big lulls in lapses of nothing happening, nothing but silence really from all these teams, and players really openly coming out and saying that they were waiting for one player to decide what he wanted to do, and that was Kevin Durant. I
Oh,
think
I thought you were talking about Mitch. I was about to
I
do the emoji.
I think I would argue that Mitchell's trade being so late into the offseason was a product of Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant really holding up the whole offseason to ultimately do nothing is kind of what caused that real delay in things. And I mean, you can partly blame Kyrie too, because he basically overvalued himself in a way by thinking that his skill would carry him enough in a trade package that a team would be willing to give up everything to go get him, when in reality he's so much of a headache at this point that I mean, it really is one of the most fascinating stories we've ever seen in terms of a player really like with that kind of talent. Normally when you put yourself out there as like, I'd like to get out of the situation, the team I'm on, teams are willing to fork over everything to get you. We saw that with Harden. We saw that with Anthony Davis. We've seen it time and time again in the NBA, especially in this like past decade. But that was weird to see Kyrie put himself out there. He's fucking amazing. He's still the Kyrie that we know and have loved for so long, but he's had so many conflicts lately that teams are just not willing to fork over that package. I thought it was really interesting.
It's locker room chemistry, right? Before we saw the fall off of DeMarcus Cousins, we saw his trade stock decline fast. He was still boogie, right? But people didn't want him because they knew what he was. And the unfortunate reality that we're in with Kyrie is the same thing. It's like, this is potentially the greatest ball handler ever, probably the best interior guard scorer ever. Uses the English off the glass better than I've ever seen it. Even looking at historical archives, right? Like I've never really seen somebody get the English off the glass the way he does, right? But nobody wants to deal with the other stuff. Like, who does, right? Who wants to deal with somebody going off on a limb and talking about a flat Earth, or going, and all the things about the vaccine and all these different things. Like, whatever your views are, mine stay the same. If your employer tells you to do something and you don't do it, get fucking canned, right? That's what the rest of us have to deal with. That's what it was for him too, and he just chose to be a martyr or some sort of, I don't know, icon for a counter movement of some sort. And you know, it just comes down to, you've tanked your legacy. You've tanked your legacy. He has a ring. He has the All NBAs. He has the All Stars. We know that he's good enough to be at least a number two on a very good team, right? He's good enough to be a top three guy on a championship team, and he's only 20. He's only 30 years old. There's time left for him. He's never really had any major injuries, right? The only thing that's ever stopped him from being on the court is himself. So it really comes down to, like, is he going to burn himself to the ground like Kanye? Or is he going to figure it out and realize that he doesn't have to be that guy? He could change his life. He could change the way that he's perceived. And he could just, be a part of the crowd like everybody else. And the reality is, it's like, I don't see that being a possibility for him. I think he's just
Well,
way too into Kyrie.
that was what I was going to ask you as a follow up to this. This big story of the offseason kind of being Brooklyn ultimately being the focal point of a lot of the offseason and then doing nothing, like kind of rolling with what we anticipated. And my question to you is, I feel like we're kind of sweeping everything under the rug right now. And like you're hearing the conversations creep back up to what they were going into the playoffs, which is Brooklyn is going to be this unbelievable favorite in the East this season. Everything's going to be great. I don't know if I believe that. I think that there's still a lot of problems here, and it all starts with honestly Steve Nash too. I don't think when you have a player like Durant voice his opinions very openly about Sean Marks and Steve Nash and show the conflict he had within the organization, it's not that easy to then just walk right back into that situation after you kind of aired them out all off season and threatened to leave. I mean, just like you brought up the employer point with Kyrie, think about it in like a real life landscape. I mean, who threatens to leave their job like that and then goes back to the exact same position with the exact same coworkers and is like, all right, let's roll, guys. I'm ready to go.
We're good.
Yeah,
But at the same time, none of us have the kind of leverage over an organization that he does.
that's facts.
I've said this since the beginning. I've liked the concept of point guards, recently retired point guards, becoming coaches. They are the quarterbacks of offenses in the NBA. The problem is when you have this happening, you have guys who played against their coaches, right? You have guys who played against their coaches. I think that's got to be something that is noticed, right? I mean, Steve Nash is notoriously like a soft spoken guy. A head coach, like you have to have a level of just machismo to you, right? You have to be able to control, navigate, and go through a locker room and command respect. And I think that while Steve Nash's performance on the court did that for him, I do think that when it came to his actual personality, he allowed that performance on the court to do that for him. And his leadership was kind of therein, right? So that's where we're running into these problems. It's a different world today. We have the most access to athletes that we've ever had. So there's no reason why we should know intuitively exactly what kind of person Kevin Durant is, but we do because we see his burner accounts. We see how he responds to people on Twitter. We see how he gets angry about certain things and gets angry about what people say about him. He's very sensitive. These are things we didn't know about athletes 10, 15 years ago, let alone 20. So, seeing that from that perspective, I think it's important for anybody who is watching this to realize that this man went off into the offseason, made it entirely about him, gambled with his own really legacy, which is already pretty tarnished since Golden State. I would say he's never going to be looked favorably, really. I mean, not until he wins a ring on his own. And at the same time, wildly overestimated what his value was to a team. Everybody loves what he does on the court. Don't get me wrong. He still is the greatest scorer ever, right? But by the same token, he's 35. He's torn his Achilles twice, right? Twice?
Yep.
Wasn't it both of them? One each?
I'm pretty sure they were both.
Either way, it's bad.
Yeah.
It literally doesn't matter. Both ways suck. If it's one each, it's bad. If it's twice on one, it's bad, right? So it's like look at all the stars we saw show the signs of age in forms of a torn Achilles, right? Kobe, same concept. We saw his age showing through. Not saying it's going to be a consistent trend and pattern for KD, but it is a reminder that not all of us are going to get the ability to play until they're 45 like LeBron. So that's what we're running into with him.
And another thing to keep in mind too, before we move on to the next storyline, is I think you can say that the Warriors winning the championship this past season kind of devalued the package, that the return that you get for a KD in a way. They rebounded pretty quickly to become a championship team after losing him. And I think that goes to say exactly they never did need him. And you're looking at like some of these great cores, like how about a Boston Celtics who were one of the front runners to go after KD? We thought they come out of this kind of like, well, do we just were in the finals ahead of Brooklyn without Kevin Durant. We have Jaylen Brown. We have Jason Tatum. We have this great core of young talent. Do we want to give up all of that just to go get Kevin Durant at age 35 with that injury history when the Warriors kind of have been able to do it without him? So I think that all of these factors really just, it goes to show you like that Kevin Durant kind of overplayed himself. He really did play himself this offseason. I'm curious to see what's going to come out of it this year because I don't buy into the fact that it's just going to be smooth sailing for the Nets. Actually, we're not going to get into any. Thank God there's really no Ben Simmons news to talk about this year until we see. But I heard Steve Nash with quotes about him today that it's going to be an adjustment. We're not going to see what we know of Ben Simmons going into the season. I just think that they're kind of lacking. And, they had a weird offseason because of Kevin Durant where you didn't really know if they were going to go out and make any side moves because if you had lost him, all of a sudden you might have to go into a complete rebuild. So they kind of made these like weird middling moves. Like I think they brought Patty Mills back, if I'm not mistaken. Like there were a couple little moves like that. So, I mean, will it be enough? Joe Harris comes back. Is he enough to put you over the edge? Like, I just don't know if I see it.
They were making those moves since that course started, though. I mean, they've never really tried to expand outside of it because, like, why do you really have to, right? Just like do what they did in Miami is just get a bunch of other people to kind of fill space and maybe come up with another 10, 15 points, outside of your core three. Speaking of trades that were insane and actually didn't make sense when you look at it in retrospect, but when you get the fury of the moment, actually seemed like it could actually happen. In Utah, happened twice, right? Danny Ainge has been fleecing people all summer. It's actually kind of crazy. When I got the news about Mitchell, one of my coworkers who's a Cavs fan walked up. He's like, "Oh, did you see it?" And I was so mad at the moment. I threw my phone down and very embarrassingly threw my phone down, broke the case. And now I look back at it and I'm like, look at what the Cavs gave them though. That's what they were asking from us. They wanted 5 first-round picks. They wanted 3 of them straight up and 2 of them as a pick swap. And that's what we talked them down to. And they wanted players. And so I went from a mindset of like, I really wanted this guy. I thought we had a chance at him. We did have a chance at him, and we lost him to Leon Rose wasn't willing to overpay for Donovan Mitchell because he believes in the core. And I fuck with that. But, I mean, what did you think about – let's talk about the Mitchell, but I think both of these trades for both of those 2 players in Utah require a little bit of context here because not only did Mitchell go to the Cavaliers for, what was it, 5 first-rounders? 5 picks total, and they gave him Colin Sexton, and they gave him Lauri Markkanen, and they gave him – it wasn't Shetty Osman, it was somebody else. But they gave him 3 pieces plus picks for – and Agbaji for I think it was just for Mitchell and some swaps.
Three and ones and 2 swaps.
Doesn't feel good to me. It feels good in the moment. That's a win now move, but the Cavs I think are almost
That's
there.
where I thought it was a little weird. I think we all though there was something weird about the fit with Sexton and Garland. I don't know, like I think they're both really good players. It just didn't quite make a lot of sense.
They're the same guy.
Exactly. So, I mean,
they're
you add Mitchell
yeah.
and he's like a little bit, he's like almost, I mean, we get into Rashad's position metrics, excuse me. And Donovan Mitchell's a perfect example of this because he does not fit into your traditional like shooting guard role. And I think that's where Garland and it's almost like Garland and Sexton would fit the same script there on Rashad's position metrics. So I get them kind of trying to change it up. It just felt like it might be a little bit premature. But I guess you have years now to grow with this core. So I'm all right with it from their perspective. I felt like, on the other hand, the Timberwolves were really a bizarre move for me. I did not. We talked about Gobert last year, and I thought Dallas would be a perfect fit. I was shocked when that trade went down. I don't know if I see Gobert and Towns fitting together on the same court. Just seems strange. I mean, it's going to be dynamic, but Gobert is just such like an awkward fit to a team. You really have to have the perfect setup around him, and they gave up almost just as big of a haul. I mean, they gave up Malik Beasley, Pat Bev, who later gets moved, which we will get into. Balmero, Walker Kessler, who was the 22nd pick in the draft. I think he was a center from Auburn, if I'm not mistaken, and Vanderbilt, and then three, sorry, 4 first round picks and a pick swap for Gobert, for Rudy Gobert. I mean,
That's a lot, dude.
he's a
That's a lot.
generational defensive talent, but I mean, there's other generational
But
defensive
but
talents that don't
right.
get that haul.
Who's 30? I mean, it's also like you're right. He doesn't fit. You have to build a scheme around a guy who doesn't really score that much, right? Because he's going to take up a lot of space down low. Great on defense. That's fantastic. And they need it because Cat doesn't like to play defense. He likes to be at the fucking 3-point line on both sides of the ball, right? And he doesn't really work hard on it. But so now they have that. That was really their, I think, a huge flaw that really was a clear indicator and why they lost that first round. They were performing pretty well in the first round, but this is the year where the Timberwolves take a step, and if not, then they're going to have to figure out the coaching situation because this is a team that can actually win some games if they figure that shit out. A good coach can figure those two guys out, right? That's a high-low all day long. I mean, there's no reason why those guys can't play high-low ball, old school type high-low ball or 4-out, 4-1. I mean, you can't really put both of them down low, and that's not really where Cat wants to be anyway. So it's sort of works out. But, I think any coach worth their salt is going to be excited by the prospect of making a very unique offensive scheme around those two guys, right? Coupled with Anthony Edwards. Now, the issue with Edwards, this is why I didn't like the trade. The issue with Edwards in college was that everybody stacks the box in college because no one can shoot threes, and he didn't do well when he drove to the basket because there was 4 people down there. And if you have somebody like Gobert now who is going to be clogging the paint on offense and defense, he's never going to be out by the 3-point line. Now you have the fact that their defensive player is going to be out there it's going to be in the zone all the time. Right? Cat was a center before. He was on the 3-point line. It gave Edwards the space to move. So now you don't have that space as much. I think it's going to be a detriment to him. I think they're going to have to play around that. And the fact that Gobert is not really an offensive threat adds to it because you can't lob it. I mean, he's a lob threat, I guess, but like, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have moves. I like Gobert. Don't get me wrong. I like him on defense. On offense, I feel like there's been times where he's legitimately a liability, especially with the way that the game's played today. So, it really comes down to, again, can they scheme for him? Can teams scheme against him? Yeah. And I think it's going to make it a little bit easier for teams to get through to the Timberwolves. And it's like, this is their breakthrough. This is supposed to be their move that gets them there. They clearly had a plan. Let's see this shit in action. Let's see if it actually makes sense.
It really is. That's like one of the biggest wait and sees of the offseason for me. Because like, even though I think I see your point, and especially as a Knicks fan, like that, it's kind of like your glass half full look at losing out on Mitchell almost. Like I can understand that. But at the same time, like I think I know what I'm gonna get out of the Cavs this year. Like they're gonna be fucking good. They're gonna be good. With the Timberwolves, I'm like I don't know how I can't like envision what this is gonna look like.
They're going to be good.
They
They're going to be
will.
good. I mean, this is Edwards' year. He's going to be an all
I
NBA
agree.
guy. I mean,
He's
he's so good. I
phenomenal.
mean, he's explosive. He shoots threes. For me, it's always been, and we have multiple of these guys now from this 2020 draft. Do you remember when the draft happened in 2020 and I was coming on this show saying like none of these guys care about basketball? I think it's going to be a wash of a draft. Like I'm eating my words every day because you have guys who just have nothing but swag. Obi with the East Bay in preseason again, right? LaMelo. I mean, like nothing else to say there, right? He's probably going to take a step back because of Miles this year, but and then like Edwards is coming out party in the fucking playoffs, like gangster. He doesn't give a shit. That's what you're looking for, right? He doesn't give a shit. That's exciting. That's what people want to see. But when you're talking about what's going to happen in these lineups and in terms of these different teams, I think it's really really interesting, and it's so fantastic that we're at this phase because the entire 2010s was marred by the age and the era of the super team. Right, it started with the Heat, then it goes into both the LeBron Cavs and the Warriors. Now those were organic, so it made it a little bit better. But then they're not organic because KD comes, and then they're gone, and that goes away. And now we have the Nets, and that's kind of dying out. This year, I have no idea. This is the first year in a while where I'm like, I don't know. Somebody asked me that yesterday. They're like, the VP of my group at work. He asked me like, Nick, who do you think's going to the finals? I'm like,
Dude, let me ask you this one. Could you tell me who the favorite to win the NBA Finals is? Did you look it up?
dude, that's what I don't know.
Dude,
That's is it it's got to be the Suns still,
dude,
right? Or
I
the
don't
Bucks?
think you would get it with your first 5 guesses. You just used 2.
Grizzlies? No. Not Miami, is
You
it?
got 4. You got one more guess.
Okay. I just don't want to say them. Oh, I mean, did I
No,
say Golden State already?
the Clippers. The Clippers are the favorite to win the NBA Finals this season.
What
It's
is
like
it
plus
though? What is it?
550, I believe. I looked at it earlier. So I mean, that's crazy. That goes to what you just said. It's like
That's an atrocious bet. Wait 2 months and then slam that in when it's a
when they're all
plus
injured and
3,000.
telling you they're gonna come back.
When everybody's hurt and John Wall gets caught gangbanging in South Central. Like, that's
Yeah, I was.
crazy. I love John Wall, but bro, you can't bring a blood to like the birthplace of bloods and expect it to behave. It's like, come on, bro. Come on, dude. I mean, fuck, dude. Like Doc kind of needs it. Oh, Doc's gone. I mean, what's his name? Who the fuck's is Tyron? Is
Tyron
Tyron
Lue,
Lue,
yeah.
isn't
I
it?
mean, that's
It's
why I
still
think they're
Tyron.
getting the respect here. And now we can kind of get into that John Wall a little bit because I think it's an interesting topic and another big offseason move. But I think Ty Lue was he didn't win Coach of the Year. I believe it was the dude from Memphis. Oh my God, what's his name? Jenkins. Um,
TJ.
and but I think Ty Lue has like proven himself even going back 2 years ago and then last year to be like one of the best coaches in the NBA. I think he's been getting that credit because of what he's done with the situations that have occurred there the past 2 seasons, injury wise.
Every team he's ever
Oh
coached
yeah,
have
dude. And
situations,
I
bro.
guess I honestly, I didn't respect him at all when he was with LeBron. I thought that was just a classic LeBron coach. But I mean, it looks like he knows what he's doing now.
Same concept. Look at it from this perspective. There's two ways this goes, right? It goes the Eric Spoelstra route, or it
Hmm.
goes the Steve Nash route, right? There's one of two ways. You falter and you fall, or you find out that this guy's actually a really good coach who just happened to have a lot of good players with him. And I mean, I agree with you. I think Ty Lue he's level headed. He never really, as much as we made fun of him for being like LeBron bitch, which is the case for literally what I mean, 95% of his coaches are just a LeBron bitch ever since he was 22. He never really stood down to him. He was like the last coach who really like put a scheme in, told him this is what we're doing. They did it and they won a championship because of it. And so that's really what it comes down to. That was him, right?
Yeah.
Tyler was that coach, yeah. That 2016 team. Yeah, I mean it is funny to. I don't believe that's nuts. That's not a good bet. Don't make that bet. Don't do that.
No.
It's not worth it. It's going to be way better
I'd
in like
rather
December. Just don't
I'd
do it.
rather
That's
take a flyer on
crazy,
like
bro. Who the fuck is in Vegas
I
right now, dude?
I
The Heat's going to him for
I could
sure.
not believe that. And I would
They're snoring halcyon in Vegas right
I'd
now,
rather
dude.
a team like the Suns, I think, just like have like a team like that has like so much to come and play for this season.
Well, I mean, that's another thing to talk about, though, right? Because I mean, we can talk about the Suns being a favorite, but then we can talk about the extras. Read all about it, right? We got extras all over the NBA this offseason. I mean, start with Phoenix, right? You have a coach who, or an owner now, another owner who just like, oh, by the way, American billionaire white guy's racist. Oh my god, can't believe it. Like, come on, guys, let's get realistic. Like, yeah, they're just dumb enough to get caught. Don't do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're from whatever time you're from. Keep it inside, and don't think that this is like a serfdom and this is your kingdom to scour over. Like, that's the reason why guys can't buy teams. Yeah, I had a colleague today asking me, it's like, if you had like $300 billion, why don't you just buy an NBA team? It's like, well, they don't let you. You're not allowed to just buy one. They have to approve you to do it. They don't want your face on it if you're not somebody who's like viable. That's why they kick people out who own. So it's like, what's it, Scarver? It's a hedge fund guy, dude. It's fucking hedge fund owner, manager. Like, yeah, that guy, not ideal, not ideal work environment guy.
Dude,
Never
it
will
came
be
out. I mean,
ever.
just as it is weird that, like, I mean, the story sounds very similar to what's going on in Washington with Snyder, and it's like the weird part is that the team has been like successful over the past 2 years or whatnot, instead of the turmoil going
And
on
we
in
talk about,
Washington.
see, here's the kicker though. We talk about the team, but I want to know what's going on behind the
Yeah, the
scenes, what
culture.
that looks like, because those are two different things. You can get good coaches at the high level. You can get good players, and they can work well together. But if everybody behind the scenes is like miserable and hates it there, whatever the case is, like, that's a big deal. You know what I mean? So and that's going to implode. It's not sustainable. So that's the issue. And I think that they honestly probably did. It's probably a very good thing that they got to the bottom of it, get that out of the equation. Hopefully, no one focuses on it. And at least it's not Boston. It's not your head coach. Right. So it's like, now we look at Ime, a year suspension for the thing, for what was it, like sexual conduct with
Mhm.
a subordinate or something,
Yep.
like, I mean, it was like a
Yeah, I
relationship though,
mean,
right?
they came out with it just being at first it was just violating team policies and then we found out very quickly what those team policies were, which was don't be having relations with one of the I don't know if it ever came out what member of the staff it was, but I'm pretty sure it was one of their significant others. So it's not like he went and it was doing something with just staff member, but a staff member's wife. Um,
It was a female staff member. I forgot what her role was, but she was married. Yeah, and I think that's how it came out. I'm fairly sure that he might have found it. I don't know. I'm not gonna speculate because I don't dig into that stuff. I find it crude. Okay, there's no crudeness. There's no room for crudeness around these parts. I just think it's ridiculous that you're going to risk your job for that, dude. Like, what's going to happen if that comes out. You know what I mean? Bro, I mean, think about how many times this takes dudes down. It took down El Chapo. Took down El Chapo. Who's to say it's not going to take down everybody else, right? You get women involved. These guys sometimes they stop knowing how to act. It's like, man, be professional. I don't
dude,
care if you're
he
a
was
former
this
jock.
close too. I mean, he was in the NBA Finals.
This was
Yeah,
the year
I
for the Celtics too. They, with Blake, they got better, dude. I mean, Time Lord, I
yeah,
think
he
he
was
got
hurt
hurt or
last year. Then
something.
he came back,
No,
but he wasn't really the same when
yeah,
he came back.
but I mean, Blake's always an underrated pickup for what
Hmm.
he goes for these days. Insanely underrated. I mean, it's like you can get him for a
They
box of
got
crackers. It's
they
crazy.
got
He's so
Brogdon too.
I fucking forgot about that. Dude.
Yeah,
They got way better. This is their year. And honestly, I mean, it's really going to come down to how cohesive are they as a unit. When these external circumstances happen, I always find one of two things is really the course of action for these teams. They either band together and they get like tight, or they fall apart and they start blaming each other for all the other people's bullshit. So it's like, we'll see. I mean, I can't imagine Jaylen Brown's happy to be there right now. They
Well,
shopped him for fucking
that's
everybody
another
this
interesting
summer.
point. And I mean,
Yeah.
you bring in Brogdon, which is a fascinating fit. And the other one that, like, the move that I fucking loved, I thought it was one of the most underrated in the offseason. And then he gets injured playing Euroball, I'm pretty sure it was Gallinari. They added Gallinari too, who I think, like, that's a guy I've been begging the Sixers to sign for years now. I mean, they kind of do all of these, like, little side pieces, and then their head coach was working with his own little side piece, and now we're heading into the season on a very different note than the way.
So stupid, dude. It's like
Yeah,
unbelievably callous. Come on, bro. How can you allow that to happen, bro? Like you're so close.
I feel
You
bad
know,
for
it's
those guys.
I
I
don't
really
know.
do, because I
I'll
mean,
never
I
understand it,
hate the
but
Celtics, man, but they're like a
me
classic
too. Me
example of,
too.
like, there's a couple in all sports. There's a couple teams right now where, like, I hate the franchise, but I actually kind of like the players on the current team. That's how I feel about the Celtics. Like, I have to hate
Yeah.
them, but I actually like their core. I'm trying to think of who the
Is that why you tweeted about the
I
Astros today?
always feel that way about the Astros, to be honest with you. I kind of
Bro, I hate Astros are the I fucking hate the Astros. No, I don't hate the Astros. I hate Bregman.
that's
I
fair.
hate Alex Bregman
Correct.
and Carlos Correa.
I love
Everyone else is
Jordan.
cool.
I'll say
They
that
were
he's a tank. Altuve can go fuck himself.
they're just chillers. Man. He's always Shusty. Sorry, it's opening night. Rangers playing the Lightning. Lightning beat us in the playoffs. Hate the Lightning. We're gangsters. We're winning this shit. So here's my big thing too. Going back to this offseason, I mean, we can talk about Paolo getting the first pick. We can talk about all that stuff. We can talk about Chet Holmgren, a soft breeze knocked him on his back and he tore his Achilles or whatever the fuck he did. You know, it's like maybe don't be 190 pounds and start there, you know. But we saw the guy who I think we all wanted Chet to be. We saw the guy who we think, I think, is next up. I don't see any chance of it not happening. The unfortunate reality of guys who are that tall is like there's always that risk of injury. But the way he plays, his style of play, the smoothness, the confidence, the tact, the finesse at 18, it's baffling. And we just saw him in a 2-game window here. Victor Wembanyama, what you know what I'm fucking talking about, the French guy. I've been talking about this kid for God knows how long, ever since he was like 15. Hang on a second. Those are my headphones. Ever since I was like 15 years old, I've been talking about this kid because I've never seen somebody with the dimensions that he has. You see how big he is. I mean, no, it's hard to notice a wingspan on a guy that tall, but his wingspan is 8 feet, and no one's even really come that close to that. Right? I mean, Mo Bamba has the current longest one, I believe, at 7'10". He's got an 8-foot wingspan, and you see it when he plays. You know what
I
I'm saying?
watched in their game the other day against the Ignite. There was a play where, I mean, it was such a minuscule play in the game, but it was one of those balls that somebody was throwing like a cross court pass in transition um to the corner for a three. Somebody was open for a three, and Victor comes down the court and just simply, like, puts his arm up in the air, like, above the free throw line, just sticks it out there, and somehow gets his hand on this ball and deflects it out of bounds, which ends up probably saving you a easy 3-point opportunity. But just such, like, a stupid little play like that. I'm like, there's literally two players in the league maybe that could have gotten a finger on that ball, and that's Rudy Gobert, who would never be in position, his French brother, because he's not going to run in transition the same way that Victor can, and maybe Porzingis if you literally like laid him down on a bed and made him reach out for it. But I mean, this guy is
We
an
don't know.
athletic freak. And I was telling my dad about him the other day too when these games were on. I'm like, you gotta see how pure this kid's shot is, because that's what blows my mind. Is like I don't care what anybody says. Chet Holmgren's shot is not like this. It's a little bit different. It's a Porzingis shot. Chet's. I think this kid is like it's he's just different. He has one of I think he's a better form, better touch from mid range than I've seen out of Giannis even. And I think like that's crazy to see from a draft prospect.
I mean, he's already a
But yeah,
way better shooter than Giannis. Not like
yeah,
unmeasurably better shooter than Giannis ever has been, and probably ever will be. And everybody's thing about Giannis was, oh well, his hands are so big, his arms are so long, it's hard for him to shoot. Victor's hands are bigger, Victor's arms are longer, and his shot is
yeah.
fucking pristine, dude. He got that shit off. I'm like, the only thing I could ever say, and it's like it's literally making it would the only way it could be any more unblockable is to make the shot look worse. He would have to shoot it like Dirk or KG, like over his head. But it's like, who's gonna get to that? If he gets that shot off, it's an unblockable shot, and he's hitting it in transition. Are you fucking kidding me? He hit it on the move, and he's got dribble moves, and he's got fucking turnarounds. They were talking the difference between Scoot and Victor going into this game. I know it's a 2-game window, but my God, he just wiped the fucking floor with him. You know what I mean? If this was like a debate, a political debate, the guy Victor would be up by 20 points right now in the polls. There's no contest. If anybody passes on that guy first pick, you're crazy. I mean, and don't get me wrong, whoever gets the second pick's not going to get a slap in the face with Scoot Henderson. But this is the guy. I mean, this is barring cross your fingers, all your fingers, that he doesn't get hurt, because I would, just ruin everything, But barring that, this is the next up, and it's interesting. It's going to be the European takeover, because now we're going to have him, Luka, Jokic, Giannis,
And how you
all
fat?
the MVPs, man. And you fat for three. That's
I don't
crazy.
know. I
That's
mean
got to
that
be on
is
purpose.
it's the
It
only
has to
thing
be
is
on purpose. And it's spelled like it too. I thought it would have been like HO, maybe like YU or PH. It's like literally ho you fat. You might
well
as well put a
the only
fucking
thing
comma
is
in there.
it's a French team, so my question is like is that like something French? I don't understand. Like is it pronounced fat? I really do not know, but um it was one of the strangest. I mean, that was a little bit of the attention that game got, but the majority of it was all Victor. And I think that was a really unique thing for basketball. I almost said the NBA, but that wasn't the NBA. To see this uh, revolution of G League and international players combine on the same stage, I thought that was pretty fucking cool. And I tuned into both games. I caught most of the second game. I got into the first game a little bit late, but I mean, it's really cool to be able to watch like two teams like that. Um, and I saw like a couple like former NBA players like Tremont Waters was in one of the starting lineups. I'm like, what that like it's just such
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
yeah.
That's where they all go, man. It's like you forget about these guys and then you see them. I remember I watched when LaMelo was playing for the Breakers, I think, wherever, the NBL in Australia. Aaron Brooks was on his team. It's like, holy shit, Aaron Brooks still plays basketball. That's crazy. This guy was on the
Mhm.
fucking Rockets like 5 years ago. You know what I mean? It's like these guys, they're always going pro. It's just where. And they'll pay him well in other countries. Like they'll pay him really well. They want that draw. I get it. But yeah. When's the last? Have you ever like? it's making me. I'm at a loss for words about it. That's how I'm fucking phenomenal. This guy is. He moves like a gazelle. He moves like KD, and I'm fairly sure that his handle might be even just a little better than KD's was at 18. A little bit, not much. KD was obviously like a slasher, and they had him listed at 6'9", but he's really 7 feet tall. But I know for a fact that that 3-point shot is one of the best for somebody of
That's
that
where
size I have ever
I
seen.
can't fathom the idea of a player that could be more could be less defendable than KD's shot is, and possibly just as good of a shooter. I'm not saying he's that right now, but just imagine it. Imagine you having somebody that is that much taller and longer than KD is, which is already crazy in itself, and say he is just a slightly worse shooter, even. Like that is unbelievable. I mean, you're talking about a package that beats KD. And that's KD's going to go down as arguably a top 10 player of all time for his dimensions. And the fact that he's such a great shooter on top of that, I think you could be talking about the same sort of landscape for Victor. And I mean, this kid is how old? 17? 18? 18?
18. 18. I wanted to see him in the FIBA, but I don't know how they do that. I think he was on like the under 19 team, and they didn't let him play in the regular FIBA Euros. So I mean that kind of got squashed. It's an incredible future upcoming. There's gonna be a lot of teams tanking, and the thing that I thought about when you were talking was Chet's hurt. He's out for the season. Victor's coming next season. They're gonna be rookies at the same time, dude.
Could they be on the same
So
team?
we're gonna get to see.
Imagine
I mean,
that.
that's the thing. It's like the twin, not towers, the twin light poles,
I like that. There's your clip. Clip that. Clip that. We're
the
throwing
twin
that right
radio
up on
towers.
Instagram.
It's the twin radio towers. Oh man, that would be really a really interesting sight if you saw both of those guys at once. The difference also, and a big thing I noticed when I was watching him is that Chet looks like he's grown about as wide as he can get. I mean, he could probably build some muscle if he eats a lot of pasta or whatever the case is. But I think Victor can genuinely get large, like big, outward. It looks like he hasn't grown into his body yet, right? So it's like, yeah, he's skinny, but like a lot of 17, 18-year-old kids are skinny, right? Once he gets some meat on his bones and stops eating like French fucking baguettes and comes to America and get some corn-fed shit into him, then he'll get, a bit bigger. And if we get that kid up to like 220, 230, it's game over. I mean, look at when Giannis came in. Giannis was a poor kid from Greece. He comes into the league. He was skinny as shit. No one ever saw what he could do. Then he gets bigger and he's strong, and it's like, oh my god! And this is Giannis basically with a jump shot. Boy, oh boy, we're in for it. We got some time. I'm basically like tapped out
I
of all the
got
stuff
I got one more we haven't
from
touched
the
yet. I
off
think
season.
there's two teams I want to talk about. I want to go
Okay.
both Eastern Conference. I want your take on your Knicks and this offseason and what we think about this Jalen Brunson signing. And then I think DeJounte Murray and Trae Young is another backcourt that we really got to talk about. And are you taking that backcourt heading into the season, or are you taking Garland and Donovan Mitchell? Because I think those are two teams that could really be competing for like top 4 or 5 seeds in the East. They already were playoff teams last year, already up there last year. And I think that's a really interesting conversation. Like, what kind of build, because I did not see DeJounte Murray might have been the surprise of the offseason for me. I don't know. Once I heard that he was clearly getting moved, I had like all these ideas in my mind. Never once did the Hawks like come up as one of them. I thought it was a really surprising fit.
It didn't make sense. What's he gonna
Yeah.
do there? They have like 12 fucking guards. And then I mean, but the question also was like, well, then where? Where is he gonna go? Obviously blindly, I'm like, oh, go to New York, right? Go to the Knicks. But it's like, nah, we would love to have him, but realistically, like, how does he fit into the scheme? I mean, he would. I'm just trying to make myself feel better, to be honest. But yeah, I didn't expect anything to happen with the Hawks. because it's also now he's a point guard, right? And now you're putting him in the backcourt with Trey. In 2010, this would make absolutely no sense because everybody's like position centric. So now it's who's bringing the ball up the court. It's obviously Trey Young, right? So or not. Now Trey's coming off the ball, getting screen set for him and getting catch and shoot. That's fucking scary. That's a scary thought. If Trey doesn't have to create his own shot, if he has a ball handler that is allowing for him to move without the ball and turns him into more of a combo than like a point guard, hybrid guard kind of situation that he has going on right now, that's really fucking scary, dude. Because like the thing is, Trey Young scoring 30 on a team doesn't win championships. We've seen it. It doesn't win a championship. It's too much usage. It's taking away from the fluidity of an offense. He's phenomenal, but like if he's seeking just for assists and for points, we see that not yielding wins, right? So now if he is off the ball, moving the ball from a position of not being the primary initiator of the offense, that actually might be really fucking scary for a defense. So, DeJounte is going to be a very interesting mix. I have to say, I think he's probably going to be an off-ball guard. I don't really see him playing primary point guard as much as, based on what I just said, I would love to see it. I just don't see them taking the ball out of Trey's hands. From my perspective, now going back to the Knicks, okay, I like Jalen Brunson. Yeah, I think he's a good guy. He's a little guy. I think he got overpaid. I think everybody thinks he got overpaid. I think the Knicks have the cap space for him. I think we can afford him. We don't really have a lot of guys on the roster right now that are getting paid a shit ton. We have the cap space to afford a guy like that. The problem is just how bad is it going to be, right? I don't think he's going to be a 20-point per game guy. But if we can use somebody like Jalen Brunson in order to start and initiate offense, very similar to what I was talking about with DeJounte, by the way, if he can start and initiate offense and allow for RJ to get cuts, backdoor cuts, allow for him to get open space. He's shooting a lot better from three, so we can, allow for him to get that space and not let fucking Julius Randle be a point guard.
He should never be bringing
That's
up the ball.
The goal, right? We don't want a 6'9" point guard. Dude, it worked for a season. Doesn't work anymore. It's over. Like, that's not effective, dude. They figured you out. You and your spin cycle, they figured you out. And we all love Julius. He gets a lot of shit this year for not performing as well as he did in 21. But like, dude, I mean, he's not a number one guy. The problem is we're a roster constructed of number two and number threes. Right. And like, we've never seen, ever since the Pistons in 05, 04, I mean, we haven't seen a team like that win a championship. We've barely seen teams like that make the playoffs. We've seen teams like that get really, really good. You can say even like the Hawks in 2015, right? I mean, but they even had Joe Johnson. Even though he was older, they still had him. And at the same time, they got fucking washed. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work in the system in the NBA. So there's that, my opinion on that. And then the final point, fuck the Cavs, but I'll talk about them. I'm fucking mad at the Cavaliers.
Because Mitch would have been that difference. That's how I feel. Like Mitch.
That's why I was upset. That's what made me upset. It's like, especially because we had already gotten Jalen, right? We already had Jalen. So if we had Jalen and Mitch, it's game fucking over, dude. We're in the playoffs. We're going far in the playoffs. We have the cohesion. We have the team that likes each other. We have the fucking Garden. You know how hard it is to win at the Garden when they're on fire.
The Rangers, man.
I mean, we saw it in Game 3.
I mean, I know it's a different fan base, but that's the same type of vibe.
Oh, it's the same motherfuckers, dude. Bro, they go out. Those dudes go home, change their jersey, and come back, bro. It's the same people. It's the same angry ass dudes from Staten Island. Yeah, I mean, so think about it from the perspective of, we were 3 years ago thinking like Shetty Osman's like the future of this shitty ass fucking Cavs team because there's nobody else, right? Colin Sexton, and granted, Colin Sexton's very good. I think he's going to have a little bit of a resurgence on a Jazz team that now like literally needs him to score 20 a game again. which is what I'll be able to do. But like, if he's your number one guy, you're a rebuilding franchise. So that's gonna be what it's gonna be for him, unfortunately, for his career. So I mean, that's what we ran into there, and then all of a sudden the resurgence or the growth of Garland. I don't know many people who saw that really coming the way it came. Honestly, like I knew he was good. I got it. And I remember you brought it up early last season. You're like, they're the 4 seed in the East. I'm like, go fuck yourself. No chance. That team is terrible and they're always going to be terrible. They don't have LeBron anymore, so they're never going to get good again, right? But JB's got those boys playing well. They have a legitimate threat in the front court. They might have the best 4 or 5. At the end of the season, we might be looking at the best 4 or 5 in the league, at least in the East. Right. I mean, Mobley is going to be a star. I've been saying it since he got drafted. I've been saying it since USC. Star. There's nothing else to it. Right. That guy is going to be a top 5 big man in the league for the next 10, 15 years. And anybody, I mean, for anybody who's listening, feel free to dispute that and tell me why. Because I don't see flaws. Right. I mean, he plays defense hard. Right? He dribbles, he shoots threes, he's got post moves, he's got bounce, right? And then if he doesn't want to play defense, they got one of the best defensive big men in the league right
if
next
you had
to
to
him,
take
bro.
one for the next 5 years, are you taking Jarrett Allen and Jarrett Allen and Mobley?
Mobley, come on.
Or are you taking Rudy Gobert and Anthony Towns?
Come on, bro. Why you got to do that? Oh, fuck. That's okay. Give me a second. Because Gobert's like, what do you got? He's got like 5 years left. I don't find, like, the thing is, because Mobley's not, we don't know what he's like in the playoffs, really.
Yeah,
We saw him
young.
in a very limited sample size in the playoffs, right? We know what Cat is. Well, we know what Cat is in the playoffs. Like, we know he
he may or may not show up.
Often, right? Like, he doesn't have he has zero killer
I hate
instinct.
that dude. I mean, not to get off on a tangent, but I could go off on one about that him, dude. It's a shame because I could not feel more polar opposite about 2 players on the same team than I do Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. Like, that's I love.
Yeah. And Gobert, by the way. Gobert's
I'm not a fan either. He's somewhere in between.
I don't like Gobert as a person.
Oh yeah.
Ever since this thing during COVID,
but I don't I want to
I'll
root for Anthony Edwards so bad, despite the mistake that he made this offseason too. We did not condone that here at NBA Stories, although it was kind of funny. But
shame.
But he cracks me up sometimes. Like his interviews are fucking hilarious, and I love the player that he is. But I mean, I don't believe in Karl Anthony Towns at all. That is somebody that, like, we see players like that in every sport, and they will never amount to anything. Like, that's just how I feel. Like, that's a losing player who stat pads. That's how I feel. I honestly think he tries harder in some regular season games than he does in the playoff scenario that we found last year. Never include him. For all you bettors out there, I've been down this road. Never include him in a same game parlay that you're cooking up ever. Because just like Nick said, there are these games that he literally just folds. Does not even try. No effort whatsoever. I agree with that.
Dude,
that's
new
definitely
Boogie. He's new Boogie.
That's
he's new Boogie. See, that's what Boogie was. Boogie's like, bitch about the media, score 60 points, get 25 boards, and lose by 12. You know, do you think the Timberwolves are going to be like the NBA's version of the Angels?
Except
Shohei Ohtani hasn't done something since Tungsten Armstrong in 1895. The Angels lose by 9. Mike Trout's batting 493 in the month of August, and the Angels are 12-30. It's like it's the same thing. I feel like the Timberwolves they'll have some success, but I don't know. I like their core, and I think they have a really good fan base, but it's all about having leadership. Do they have it? I don't think any of those guys are leaders. Really. I mean, I think that Gobert is a polarizing figure by himself. He can be a leader if he wants to, but he doesn't always want to. Cat by, I mean, I just nothing. That dude's the Russell Wilson
That's
of the
actually
NBA,
an
corny as fuck.
unbelievable
You know what I
comparison
mean?
that I
And
will be
like,
using from now on
yeah,
because I
it's
hate
sad.
Russ.
It's sad
Um,
that I thought of that because it's true. Everybody does. I feel like Future walks into Russell Wilson's
I'm here to
house
see
like
my
without
son
knocking.
that you've been taking
I'm here to
care
see the
of.
kids do something. Just like walks by. It's, take that
He's
fucking
like, I
jersey
bet I
off him.
could get a touchdown in the red zone at Mile High.
Yeah.
And while you raise my kid. Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, you raised my kid for me. I'm not paying for it. He I love how we've gone an
I
hour
mean,
and we haven't once talked
I
about
know
Ja
we'll be
Morant.
talking about him just plenty. I
Oh wow.
actually, you know what I almost brought up his name about?
I mean, that's the
Because
thing.
it was thoughts were running through my mind when we were talking about Victor and Scoot in this draft class. I'm like, what could that remind you of? Just imagine, like we're talking about this physical specimen like a Zion, and the only thing that could potentially hold him back being health. And what if this Scoot Henderson is that next man, that number two who ends up? I mean, I don't necessarily.
We got to talk to Shad
Yeah,
about it because like Shad's the only one who's saying there's only one guy in 2019 that I heard
yeah.
talking who said this is going to be the Ja Morant
Let's see
draft.
what he thinks about Scoot.
Rashad
Yeah.
Phillips. So like, let's see what he says. Isn't that bonkers? That's actually like that's like the one thing when he said it,
Yeah.
I'm like, Zion's kind of
We
fucking
also
sick,
didn't
dude.
talk
But
about the
it's
boy
like no, it's
Zion
like
this entire
Jaws the G
episode
man.
because that's a team right there. That's a fucking team
He's
where,
looking good, man.
dude, I liked what I
Yeah,
saw in the playoffs
yeah, it
from them
is.
last year. And might be a hot take, but I liked what I saw from them more than what I saw from the Timberwolves. Those were two teams that like surprised a little bit. Did they play in the play-in? No. Wait, then they did, but
No, the
and the
Timberwolves played the
Pelicans knocked out the
Clippers.
Timberwolves, right? I forget how that play-in worked. But that
I don't
The
remember.
Pelicans gave the Suns a
It's all
fight.
a whirlwind.
I mean, that was legit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
that's
did.
what it
Didn't they take
was.
him
You
to
know
seven
what? They didn't
or
play.
six or something?
The Timberwolves locked in that 7 seed and they played the Warriors, I want to say. That had to have been it.
Warriors.
I don't know.
No,
Wait,
the
this is
Timberwolves. I think played the.
last year is in the
I don't know.
past. We have forgotten.
I know it's in the past. I think what we got to talk about is the fact that
Mhm.
CJ McCollum is an actual leader, right? Literally the president of the NBA Players Association. Like that's a big deal. That was Chris Paul for years, and now it's CJ, right? He's a leader in the locker room, and he's a very good player. And now he's got Zion coming back, and like if we're just gonna go based on weight, I guess, and like like how fat Zion looks, were we ever under the impression that he wasn't going to get back in playing shape? Yeah, I mean, like we all made fun of him and we said like he looks like he's been eating too much jambalaya and shit in the Big Easy, right? But the reality is like he's still a freak athlete and he's going to get back. And so that's what we saw. I don't know if you saw like
Yeah.
literally looking a lot better, you know. So we'll see what happens there. So it looks like Mark's a little indisposed right now. I think he ate some bad fish. I'm gonna wrap this up myself. For everybody who's out there, again, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for being diligent, always paying attention. People who come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to know about the show, like what's going on, all that kind of stuff." Like to you people that keep me doing this stuff, when I feel like I there's no reason to do it, you know. But for everybody out there, just remember we have the book coming out. Okay, it's called the Evolution is Televised by Rashad Phillips, and we have two copies coming in. They're gonna be signed, so we're gonna have a giveaway for you guys. So just stay posted. We're gonna post on social media. Just let us know, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully, we'll both be back here.